if you are able, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I will now introduce our board of directors. We have Jonathan Henderson, Mike Rowley, Madeline DeMaintenon, Tasha Woods, and I'm Jason White. We are joined by Superintendent Ginger Haberer, Executive Director of Student Services, Kelly Kronbauer, and Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Kim Snyder. And with that, board, first on our agenda is the consent agenda. We've had the opportunity to review these items individually and as a board during our study session to seek any clarification from district admin prior to the meeting. I will entertain a motion. Actually, stop. Before I do that, I think we all noticed and want to acknowledge as a board that we have two teachers who are retiring. First, I'd like to acknowledge Kathy Dixon is currently a special education teacher at Mount Stewart. She has over 28 years of teaching experience, all within Ellensburg School District. So we really want to honor Kathy Dixon for her service. Second, we also have Kathy Harrell, who is a first grade teacher at Lincoln. She has over 32 years of total of teaching, and again, all at which were within Ellensburg. So congratulations, and we will miss you. Thank you for your service. All right. And with that, I will now entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I second.
All right, Mike has moved that we accept the consent agenda, and Jonathan has seconded. Board, any discussion? Then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, consent agenda is approved. Next up, we have administration. First up, we have the superintendent update. Ginger.
Yes, board. Well, we have a very special treat tonight. First, I would like to recognize our Future Farms of America, our FFA teacher and sponsor, Sammy Jo Sims. She was recently selected as the Washington News CTE Teacher of the Year, and she has advanced to the next round of competition as one of the top 5 teachers in Region 5, and is now in the running for the National News CTE Teacher of the Year Award. So let's give her a round of applause, and I'd like Sammy Jo to come to the mic, please. Oh, hold on.
Oh, yeah, well, let's make sure we can hear you. We'll get sure the mic's on.
Thank you so much, Ginger and board. I would like to talk a little bit about the award in specific. So I applied last spring, and in August of 2021, I was recognized as the Washington ACTE New CTE Teacher of the Year. This award is open to all career and technical education teachers across any program, both secondary and post-secondary, teachers within their 1st through 5th years of teaching. So I was awarded that in August. Earlier in April, I was awarded the Region 5 New CTE Teacher of the Year. Region 5 is the largest region of ACTE with more than 5,300 members. There's more than 16 states, plus Guam and the Americas Samoa. So I'll advance to nationals as one of the top 5 new CTE teachers in the nation in the coming year. So it's kind of a tiered schedule for that award program. This award recognizes CTE educators who make significant improvements to unique and innovative CTE programs, as well as making professional commitments early on in their career. I love being a part of the Ellensburg School District. This is my 5th year of teaching, and our Agged program is greatly growing in all aspects in terms of class offerings, career and technical, CTSO leadership organization offerings, industry recognized credentials, and dual credit college credit. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sammy Jo. And now I invite Steve Russell to the mic. He has been the solid foundation for FFA for many, many years, has put in hundreds of hours into building the amazing program that we have now at EHS. So we really want to honor you, Steve, too, and your FFA students. And please share with us the great work that you guys have been doing.
Yes, thank you, Board and Ginger, for this opportunity. I've been here since 2006. This is my 30th year teaching, and I obviously couldn't do this by myself, so it was a great honor to have Sammy be hired 5 years ago. Just a great addition to the program, and it's truly a team effort. We do have experts with us today, and I'll turn it over to them because part of the presentation, they were actually the ones working with the 3rd graders at the 3rd grade Ag Appreciation Day. So I'll let them go on from here, but thank you.
Yeah, they have to go to the mic.
Because it's Zoom, if you are going to speak, we'd like for you to be at the mic so that way our people that are zooming in can hear you.
This first picture is just our whole entire group that helped that day on a yearly basis. Of course, it's been a couple of years because of COVID, but on a yearly basis, we'll have as many as 30 kids helping out from our FFA chapter, putting on this program. And we're not in charge of it. It's the County Conservation District and Mr. Mark Crowley that is in charge of it. We just assist with it, as well as Kittitas FFA and Thorpe FFA was involved this year as well. We currently have 77 FFA members at the high school, all grades, and here tonight is our officer team. And now I'll officially turn it over to them.
So my name is Cooper Neboychik. I'm a 4-year Ag Ed student and the Ffa Chapter Treasurer. So what my friend and I were doing here was giving a demonstration and presentation about agriculture technology in our valley. One of the topics we talked about was how GPS is used. So one of those out on the farm is we use a strip tillage machine and till out the rows during the fall. We can go back in the spring and use the exact same GPS coordinates and plant the seeds and the fertilizer at the same time. This allows for better yield production, and it creates less over tillage of the soil, which is better for the soil. Another topic we got to talk about and show them was the Agged Drone. Now this drone, you can take out over a 40-acre field. It maps out the perimeter of the field and your crop rows, creating a 3D digital map. You can take this map and the owners of the drones can fly out anytime they want and check how their crops are doing, as well as they take that map into different drones, such as sprayers or fertilizer drones, and they map it all out and just kind of let it do its thing. So it's a really cool thing to see. And all the 3rd graders are all excited about seeing drones and how big they are. So it was really cool. Thank you. The last one.
Thank you. So my name's Cole Hansen. I'm the Ellsberg Ffa Chapter President and also a 4-year agricultural education student. So I was honored to work with Cooper to teach kids on the 3rd grade Ag Day event. As I move forward from high school and transform into a college student, I take with me my passion and my passions for agriculture. I'm a newly admitted student to Washington State University and its honors college, where I plan to major in agricultural technology and production management, which not only combines agriculture but it combines it with business and computer science. It's a really cool field, and it's a needed field with our growing population, a demand for land and its valuable resources and technological advancements. And none of this would have been possible, my admittance to both Wazoo and in the Honors College, without the lessons and values that I've learned through FFA and my agricultural classes.
I'm Adele Karen. I'm the Ellensburg FFA Chapter's Vice President, and I am a fourth-year ag student. What I and our chapter sentinel, Emily, did on our Agricultural Advocacy Day was we talked about the small animal part of agriculture. And what's really special about this part in comparison to beef or swine is that small animal is applicable everywhere, no matter your space, your size, or your previous experience. I did not grow up in an agricultural background or on a farm. I was raised in town. However, through the agricultural opportunities presented to me, I was able to start raising rabbits. By teaching others how to raise rabbits and the intricacies of caring for them, managing their nutrition, their health, their showing records, and the skills needed to groom them, I was able to convey to them the opportunities that I had in the Kittitas Valley as a student who wasn't necessarily from an ag background. Joining FFA as a freshman allowed me to further expand on those skills and share what I had learned and to truly spread the mission of the National FFA organization. Another station at our agricultural presentation was, you can click on this next slide, was we talked about the hay industry in the Kittitas Valley. Very significant industry. We talked about the different types of hay, the marketing in it, where it's sold, how it's harvested, and how crucial it is to the Kittitas Valley and what it is. You'll see Samantha in the center there. She is on our horse team and she also grows hay on her farm. She is just one example of the many backgrounds and skills our FFA students have and the importance of spreading it and teaching it to younger generations. Thank you.
Oh, on the next slide. Hi, my name is Reagan Nabojcik. I am this year's chapter secretary, and I've also been in ag for 4 years. So Parker and I are chapter reporter. We were in charge of the dairy industry station. And the dairy industry is a really important industry in the US. There are over 49,000 dairy farms. There's over 625 dairy processing plants, and the dairy industry brings in over 900,000 jobs. So it's a pretty impressive and big field for the US. And we didn't really want to bore the third graders with a whole bunch of facts. So we decided to burn some energy and we made them butter. We went around in a group and we all shook some heavy cream and we made butter. So we gave them an experience to make a dairy product.
So this picture you see here is of the Ellsberg FFA Apple evaluation team. We are at state Apple evaluation where we placed fourth as a team, and I personally placed fourth individual. CDEs or career development events falls under, or Apple evaluation falls under CDEs, which are career focused. However, they do have other aspects to them. Excuse me. CDEs, they do so with the career part of them. They allow you the possibility to earn industry credited certifications or credentials, which we use in the Apple industry, and through the Apple evaluation contest, you can earn a certification in pesticide application, or maybe through the meats evaluation contest, you can earn a meat selection and evaluation certification. CDEs do not only prepare you for the big things in life, such as your future career, but even the small things such as just being an informed consumer. Thank you.
So this picture you see is our Conduct of Chapter team. It is a first year only member competition, so they are all freshmen. And in Conduct of Chapter is an LDE, which is a leadership development activity. So they work in public speaking and like working on managing businesses and different like managing a meeting. So in Conduct of Chapter, they have to give a public speech about the roles of different officers. They also have to manage a debate with meetings under parliamentary law. I did it as a freshman and it definitely helped me. I'm this year's executive ASB president. So get to work on my public speaking and all the meetings I have to preside over. I definitely learned my skills from Conduct of Chapter.
It's me. That's my lovely mug you see up on the screen. So I also competed in the extemporaneous speaking LDE this past month at districts. And what that acronym means is LDE stands for Leadership Development Events, which are like career development events, but instead of career technicalities, they're focused on developing leadership skills. Our chapter participates in a wide variety of LDEs. Just this year, we have our Conduct of Chapter meeting team. Parker Liskey behind me in the Employment Skills LDE. She is advancing to state in mid-May. There's also myself in extemporaneous speaking. I was lucky enough to qualify for state at districts. We also have our Creed speaker, which we're going to talk about later on, Olivia Mitchell. She is also advancing to state as well. And a little bit more on extemporaneous speaking is it is a public speaking contest in which you are given 3 topics and to choose one of them, and you are given 30 minutes to prepare a 4 to 6 minute speech on those topics. And it can be about anything from agricultural literacy and advocacy, what we teach in our schools, to food science, GMOs, what we develop, and the importance of international trade relations and the role agriculture has to play in those. What extemporaneous speaking has taught me, an introvert, a person who doesn't like necessarily to public speak, is to think on my feet, good communication skills, how to learn and absorb information. This is my 2nd year competing in extemporaneous speaking, and it is a fun and competitive event. And the skills it has taught me, I can use in day-to-day life, at school, outside of school, right now, even with my friends. It's that communication and importance of what it has taught me.
So this is the Creed speaking team. This is a first year member only event. It is all individual. Through this, they're required to memorize, recite, and answer questions on a 5-paragraph belief in the in and outs of agriculture. This is a public speaking event, which, like Adele said, it leads on to further events like parliamentary, extemporaneous, or prepared public speaking. Like Adele already said, Olivia Mitchell will be participating in state later this spring, and Jensen Roeder was a district alternate. Thank you.
The team that you see here is our national placing horse evaluation team from the 94th National Ffa Convention that competed earlier this fall in October. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to share their achievements with you. And I know that we've taken a little bit of time. I'll be very brief, but I would like to provide some context of this competition for both the board and our audience. So our team members here from left to right is Samantha Kopic, Emily Ryder, Adele Karen, and Chloe Clyburn. For National Ffa career development or leadership development events, only the top first place team or individual, depending on the structure of the contest, advance to the national level. This past year, due to mitigate the risk of COVID-19, their competition was tiered in a hybrid model. So our team members competed virtually in September, first with a knowledge exam based on breed and color identification and confirmation, as well as anatomy and structure and tack identification. Additionally, they competed in 5 separate team scenario activities based on nutrition and feeding, breeding and reproduction, marketing and current industry trends, animal welfare and safety. Those scores did add to their team or their judging scores that were taking place in person in Indianapolis. When they arrived in Indianapolis, they evaluated 8 different classes of both performance and halter. The performance classes are where there's a rider and a horse, a variety of disciplines, including Western riding, Western horsemanship, ranch riding, ranch pleasure, hunt seat equitation, hunter hack, hunter under saddle, reining, and trail. In addition, there were halter classes, which are breed confirmation classes, including American Quarter Horse, Appaloosa, Arabian, Morgan, Standardbred, and hunter confirmation. After evaluating these 8 classes, they then have to deliver 4 sets of oral reasons in which they justify their placings to a panel of judges. Our team not only made Ellensburg history, but Washington State FFA history with their team and individual placings. Our team was 4th place overall. Adele Karen was our 4th place overall individual in the nation. Emily Ryder was our 5th place overall individual in the nation. Only 5 points separated 1st and 4th place. It was an extremely tight contest with Samantha Kopic and Chloe Clyburn also placing as silver individuals. So a tremendous achievement for them. This next picture is our marketing plan CDE team that also qualified for the national convention this past fall. They also placed 4th respectively in their competition. The marketing plan CDE team is CDE event is an extremely dense competition. It requires students to develop a connection and relationship with local agribusinesses. Our team selected Glondo Sausage Company of Cleellum. They were an exceptional business to work with. They offered a lot of their time and their products to make sure that our team was successful, and we definitely appreciate that. In the marketing plan CDE, students prepare an 8-page marketing plan consistent of a current market analysis, which is a background and the client's current status in the market, as well as industry trends. And our team conducted extensive secondary research to develop a buyer profile and behavior. In addition, they also do a business proposition, which consists of a mission statement, key planning assumptions, identifying the primary and secondary target market, and conducting a SWOT analysis, both for the client and local, regional, and national competitors. After that, they conduct their strategies and action plan, which is for the product, price, place, promotion, and position. Additionally, they do an extensive budget, which is a future-oriented 3-year pro forma income statement with annual returns on investments. And then they identify their evaluation tools and develop a contingency plan in the event that that marketing plan is not successful. They then have 15 minutes to present that plan in depth to a panel of judges, and then have 10 minutes of questioning, both clarifying for the written plan, presentation, and then standard marketing questions. This competition, due to the hybrid model, was also tiered. They competed in August virtually, and then they advanced to the top 18 teams in the nation, where they went to compete in person in Indianapolis during the semifinals round. They won their flight and advanced to the Final Four, where they got to compete in Finals Hall, which was broadcasted live at the national convention. And then ultimately they placed 4th overall, which was absolutely tremendous. These 3 girls were recent graduates of Ellensburg High School. From left to right, Cammie Hartrick, Kaylee Johnson, and Bailey Shirley.
Is it quiz time?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Please don't quiz us on everything you shared. No, that was incredible, you guys. It's such an incredible example of project-based, community-connected learning with such a rich history that thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us. 2 personal notes. I have a 3rd grader who was lucky enough to experience what you guys shared. For whatever reason, it was a terrible morning that morning for the 3rd grader, and she was determined she was not going to go to that field trip, but she went, and all night we heard about everything that she learned. So it was extraordinary how you lit that fire. And then the second thing, Ms. Wojciech, I don't know if you remember, but I was—
You followed me
I was lucky enough, and I think that your mom just kind of roped you into it, but you were kind and gracious enough to share an entire 9th grade day with me. And I walked away from it thinking, what an extraordinary young woman you were. And so it's amazing to see you standing here, such an accomplished young woman moving forward. So thank you for sharing that day with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you pull it up for me? So Leslie's going to pull up my superintendent update. I had it on Zoom, but for some reason I kept turning off all my mics and everything. It kept reverberating. So. You can go down to the 4th slide, Leslie. There we go. That's it. So what a celebration, again, of the project base and just our partnership with the community. And it's really a fun celebration to start with. Board, you asked me again for an overview, a brief overview of the reduction process. And so I will do that with you and then kind of give you where we're at now moving forward and end with some other celebrations that we have here in Ellensburg. We have a lot of great things happening. So as we've talked about in several meetings, ESD is making an approximate $1 million reduction, mainly as due to a drop in enrollment that occurred during the pandemic. The reduction plan, as you know, is posted on our website. About 80% of ESD's budget is pay and benefits. ESD, we're in the process of reassigning staff to similar positions and therefore filling open positions as much as possible to achieve this reduction in order to keep staff from losing their jobs. This process does not necessitate a budget committee with multiple stakeholders. ESD has used this process multiple times in the past, and this process is done as a result of collaborative sessions with building and district level leadership. Students, parents, and staff will be asked for their input regarding the budget during times when and if there is a systemic reduction in force, which may result in job loss for many staff members. By reducing the budget now, though, through attrition, we could potentially avoid having to implement a systemic reduction in force in the future. I shared this with you before. You can see the reduction in about 200 FTE as a result of the drop of enrollment seen between September of 2019 and September 2020. Next slide. The other factor that really affected our budget was several things post-McCleary. We lost the staff mix factor, which I've explained, but they also put a lid on our levy. And so you can see this is a graph that was shown during levy budget presentations. I shared it also in many of my community sessions that shows that we went down to 150 and even, like 132 this year. And we kept it at that because not only the levy lid that was given to us post-McCleary by the legislature, but we also promised our voters that we wouldn't go above 450. And we have kept that promise. And you can see where the gap is there through December of 2022. We're getting that about 150 per thousand. And then again, a huge thank you to our voters. We will go up to 250 per thousand starting in January of 2023. But this is a great graph, I think, that just shows the overall trends. And I have shared this with you before. Again, in going through the budget reduction process, we did consider very much so the board budget priorities. Next slide. So here we are, ESD overview. The teachers and librarians that have been part of the reduction process have been reassigned for next year and are staying fully employed. No teacher or librarian is losing their job. Both secondary librarians will be full-time middle school teachers for next year. All of the current elementary librarians accepted their new role as a stream library specialist for next year. And we encourage all of our interested staff, students, and parents, especially who are interested, to join the Student-Centered Learning Committee. I have put that out a couple of times, just recently in my superintendent update again. This committee is going to help lead the work. We talked about this a little bit in our study session to identify the types of learning experiences that we desire for our students in our district. And especially into next year, when we really identify what are those learning experiences that we want for our students, this committee will come together and look at what are some of the reinstatement that we may want to do starting 23-24 with positions, as well as looking at the Esser funded positions. And our first meeting is tomorrow night. It's not too late. If people still want to sign up, they can. And first meal will be by Zoom. And so we hope that right now, I think we have about 15 folks that are signed up. And we'll also be looking at, and thank you, Tasha, for bringing this to the board from the State Board of Education, the profile of a graduate. We anticipate that we'll be using this and looking at it to say, okay, if this is what Washington State is saying they want for a profile of a graduate, what do we want in ESD? And I would anticipate that this team, this committee we're putting together this year will be key in bringing all of our stakeholders together again at the beginning of next year to say, let's look at the board ends. Are these still the outcomes that we want for students? Do we want to elaborate? Do we want to change it? Does it align with the profile of a graduate, Washington State? And then I would anticipate that we would be putting together our own ESD profile of a graduate. So we've got some exciting work ahead, I think, with that committee. I want to show you, we briefly looked at this during our work session. These are the current planned ESSER funded positions for next year. Again, this is the plan right now. It can change a little bit depending on the budget. But right now we have 4 deans, 1 early learning director. And I will say, when I did the levy presentations at elementary schools, one elementary in particular, teachers were very clear that they really wanted to make sure that we had 2 administrators at an elementary school. We have seen an increase in challenging behaviors at the elementary school level. And I actually had one teacher who made an appointment and came and met with me in person as well to share what she felt like was the feelings of her colleagues around that importance of being able to support teachers when a student has a challenging behavior, and having 2 administrators at the elementary was something that was really a priority. We have an early learning director. We know when we think about what ESSER funds are supposed to be used for, they're one-time funds. They can be used for, these are all temporary positions right now, but they're also based on what do we need as a result of COVID, right? When we had virtual, we had hybrid, and we took a lot of feedback from what we heard from teachers, what we heard from parents, and said, okay, what are the types of positions that we need to put in place to support our students from all of that, the different feedback that we got. And certainly mental health is something that came up several times. And we are so fortunate that we have 2 mental health specialists, 2 family liaisons. When we did our equity and inclusion survey last year, we found that we had some groups of parents that really were not feeling connected. And so we responded to that using that survey with the ESSER funds to say, okay, let's put in 2 family liaisons. We still have 1 school nurse at every elementary. We still don't really know what will happen with the pandemic. We're hoping that it will stay perhaps how it is now, but we know Dr. Larson came, during public comment about 4 meetings ago and said, we don't know, like it could evolve and we could have another surge, especially in the fall and winter of next year. So we feel like it's really important to keep a school nurse at every elementary school right now for next year. We do have some paraprofessionals, and those paraprofessionals kind of link together too, down with under teachers, the MTSS coordinators. What we saw in our MAP scores is not unusual. You see this in other districts, but that is that we saw that some students really didn't grow for one year of instruction during hybrid, during virtual. Some students did well in virtual, but many of them did not. And so this year we put into place having an MTSS coordinator that brings our elementary teams together, looks at what are the individual needs of students, and then puts them into small groups. I had the wonderful privilege of being at Mount Stewart during one of their Wednesday early releases, and just seeing those teams in place, really looking hard at the needs of our students. And certainly the MTSS coordinators are essential in making sure that we're still putting those supports in place where at least 4 times a week for an hour each of those days, students are able to meet in smaller groups with either a paraprofessional or a teacher and get that more individualized support in a small group based on either the literacy or the math skill that they're needing. And I anecdotally talked with students, and I love my win time and really enjoy being able to get together with different kids. We also know that our English multilingual learners, I think particularly struggled during the pandemic, not being in person. And so we felt like it was really important again to staff each of the elementaries with a full-time multilingual teacher. And so we're using Esser funds for that. And we know that early learning is essential, and we're using a 0.5 to fund our TK teacher. We started that program this year. We had about 20 students, and we even had a waiting list of students that wanted to get in. And we are planning on doing that again next year, especially seeing the great response that we had from our community. And so you can see that totals about $1.6 million of Esser spent on staffing based on the needs that we identified for our students, especially as a result of, we think, of kind of the fallout from the pandemic. The issue is that the Esser funds are no longer exist in 24-25. And we also know that next year we can cover that 1.6 plus, I'm going to show you another slide that has some other expenses on it. But the following year we'll have less. And so we're going to have to really look at these temporary positions right now and start thinking about, okay, hopefully our enrollment will go up. If it goes back up to 3,200 and those new homes get built, I hear that there's permits on them and we get an increase in our population. My hope would be that all of those positions were able to absorb those into the general budget, general fund. But we're going to have to see. Here's the other thing. Now, what positions that we have reduced over the past few years that we'll be looking at would be the 2 secondary librarians. We have 1 school safety officer. We eliminated that position, or said that we'd reduce it, but that we said that when we came to a position where we weren't, where our expenditures weren't higher than our revenue like they are this year and looking into next year, that we would relook at that position. Assistant principal at Morgan Middle School. Right now we have a dean in that position who's being paid for with Esser. And then we have approximately 2 to 3 teaching positions that we have reduced over the years, and some paraprofessional positions. So these positions, along with the Esser funded ones, we'll need to be looking at all of those. And that will be something that this committee can start looking at and pairing with, okay, what are the needs of our kids? What are the learning experiences we want? How do these different positions support that? And at least helping us to prioritize how we would keep those that are temporary and reinstate ones that we said that we would look at reinstating. So that was the overview that you guys asked for. Just want to finish up saying we do have great things happening here. Mike Rowley, Kelly Kronbauer, Jen, and I recently met with a group of parents who just had some really good questions around social emotional learning. And we had a great meeting with them. And Mike showed me a post from one of those parents, and we didn't always agree on things, but we were able to learn each other's perspectives. And I think that people got their questions answered, and it was very collaborative. And I just really appreciated that they were willing to meet and sit down and have a conversation. Jen Kuntz, our Director of Teaching and Learning, she is in the process, and she was able to show this group some of this website. She is in the process of putting that together, where our parents could go, and any kind of curriculum they have a question about, they can click on and they can see it. Bo, Michelle, and I recently attended a professional development from Solution Tree called Grading from the Inside Out. And we did some great learning together, 2 full days of Zoom. PD is kind of rough, but it was good. And we're excited to start some collaborative discussion groups soon regarding grading practices with interested secondary teachers. We did start a negotiations with Ellensburg Education Association, EEA, and currently we have meetings scheduled for, we met April 1st, and you can see those other dates that we currently have on the calendar, April 21st, April 29th, May 6th, May 19th, May 31st, and June 7th. So just appreciate their team and our team willing to come together and put those dates on there and start that negotiation process. We started, as you know, the equity inclusion survey, which we're really focusing on that sense of belonging. At the secondary level, students will have an opportunity. It's totally a voluntary survey for both parents, for staff, and for students. And they'll have an opportunity, students will, if they want to, during advisory. And it's put in their bookmark section on their Chromebooks. And Jen has an instructional materials committee. And any parent who is really interested in wanting to know the curriculum and being able to get on there and see the curriculum and have conversations, we are asking for a 3-year commitment. And there's a certain number of slots that she has for that committee. So once we have the sign up, totally by random, she'll do a lottery to pick the people that will actually be on the committee. Because for this committee, it's hard to have several, you need a certain number on there. And then ending with celebrations, starting and ending, supporting the whole child. And these are ones that I had in my superintendent update. Lincoln's doing their Heart, Mind, Body Ironman Challenge, which includes reading and doing good deeds and walking. It's pretty impressive. The goal for the running portion of Ironman Challenge is 26 miles over a course of 2 months. And then they have some reading guidelines too. I thought, what a great way to just celebrate the whole child. And I know Joanne would love to be able to come in June, I think is when they're ending that, just to kind of share out her celebration around that and what her experience was with it and her students. We definitely support our community. Here's just one example. Valley View collected 2,351 pounds of food, which is just remarkable for fish. I've also represented Ellensburg School District with the city when they, on a Saturday morning, when they had their cultural arts initiative that Bruce Tabb came and talked to us about. So I was able to collaborate with them for a couple hours on a Saturday. It was really fun, kind of putting together what would be the vision here in Ellensburg for cultural arts. And I'm also going to be on their leadership team. And unfortunately, they scheduled their meeting for the board meeting tonight, but I'll try to attend as many of those as possible. So we're excited to partner with people in our community as well as the city in this initiative. And last, but absolutely not least, Morgan Middle School goes all out for students. I was excited for this, so get your tennis shoes out, get your running shoes out. They are going to have a 5K run walk and kids dash on Saturday the 30th at Rotary Park. I may be out of town this weekend, but if not, I'll be there. And it's just a great way to raise money for their student activities. And Jason, you remember when we were at Morgan, I think it was Carly Clark had the whole display case of all the different prizes that they do for the positive behavior support system. And I'm thinking some of this money may go towards that as well. So that is my report.
Thanks, Ginger. Board, any questions or clarifications? Nope. All right. The next up, we have collective bargaining agreement with PSE.
Yes, so we've come to you a couple of times to weigh in on the negotiation process with PSE. So I'm coming to you for a recommendation to vote as a board to approve this contract with PSE.
So board, this is an action item. I think the quick comment that I would just say is thank you for all of the individuals that worked to come up with that agreement. The board always loves to see agreements made. So, so thank you. I know that that is always a challenge and it takes a lot of collaboration and work. So thanks to all who did that.
I move that we approve the collective bargaining agreement with PSE.
I'll second that.
All right. Jonathan has moved that we approve the collective bargaining agreement and Mike has seconded. Board, any discussion? All right, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, then the collective bargaining agreement is approved. Thank you. And last for the administration section is the potential standing board committees. Ginger.
So board, just as a reminder, this was an item that was on our work session and we didn't get to it. But my recommendation is to form 2 standing board committees, one being the Student-Centered Learning Committee and the other one being the Capital Bond Project Committee. As you remember, Cole Canyon came earlier to talk about that. I had an opportunity to walk the field and look at the bleachers and go under the bleachers, which was like, it was not a pretty sight. And really, we have an amazing athletic program here. And so I certainly would see that as a potential need to look at our facility in the future. I think another need that we have is potentially for a warehouse. One of the items that we are currently paying for right now with the Esser funds is a storage unit for all of the masks and tests and things like that, because we literally don't have a warehouse. We have a couple of kind of open sheds that are behind where the transportation department is, and we've got some pretty expensive equipment sitting underneath little kind of tin roof structures. But I think as we grow, especially as a district, we probably will need to take a look at that. And I'm sure there's other projects that this committee could look at and say, looking at the future, you know, what is our overall plan? How would we prioritize those needs? And what would we want to do fiscally to prepare for that? And so I put the policy in the administrative part in there, but basically the board just has to agree as a whole that you want to have the standing committee and decide who's going to be on the committee and then what the purpose and the terms would be. And I just put some suggestions in there just to as a conversation starter.
So board, this is proposed as discussion and as an action item. So feel free to discuss or to take action. I don't need to go first. So who would like to
I
go
just wanted a
first?
clarification. The committee that's meeting tomorrow night, what is that committee again?
That is the student-centered learning. It's not officially a board committee.
Okay.
I'm asking for it to become one. It doesn't have to be. I mean, we can have it without it, but I think student learning is the heart of our work, right? And so I think it would be a good thing to have that as a standing committee for our board.
So maybe to follow up with that, I am very supportive of the Student-Centered Learning Committee being a board committee. And I think we've heard a lot of community have talked and have shared their concerns about potentially making recommendations regarding programming and future reinstatement of staff positions. So I think as a board, I think this is a way to show the community that we are hearing them and that this is a way for the community to be involved for those recommendations in the future. So I would propose that the board does stand behind this and we do move to have this be a board committee. That way 2 board members can be a part of that, can really hear those that are involved in the committee and then can report that back to the board.
And roughly how many people will be are we hoping to have on that committee, or will it be a smaller committee that has town meetings open to the public, or is it kind of those that want to be on it?
I think right now it's just open because it's easier, by Zoom. We're just exploring ideas this year. I think that's part of the terms and purpose, though, that the board would develop. So Tasha, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I would encourage, that we follow that policy and then the board comes up with the charge to the committee, and that the committee then decides and wrestles. And if they want to hold town forums, or if they want to go out and get additional information, then since they are staying committee, they have a few more protected rights that way. But I think many districts have a standing student-centered learning committee. Historically, it hasn't been part of Ellensburg. I think moving forward, especially how COVID has changed our world so much, really letting parents and students, especially having a space at the table. Teachers and staff already have that protected space at the table, but bringing all those stakeholders together to really ask those questions. What do we carry forward? What does this experience look like in this evolving world? And how do we evolve education here? And that we start having that committee start working with that, because as you'll see in the board report, again, the State Board of Education is moving forward with possible recommendations of changing the high school diploma and changing the pathways through our high school and the experience of our high school students. And so having Ellensburg already being discussing, what does that look like? What does it feel like? And I encourage and always hope that we get students at this committee, students who are speaking about what is it like at school. It was, like I alluded to, Ms. Boyachek let me follow her for an entire day as a 9th grader. You learn a lot, because a lot of us will assume the world's the same as it was when I was in 9th grade. I'm not that old. I am that old. And so really encouraging the committee to do that work.
I had put on there, it could be a proposed purpose. It could be just something that we say now and then we revisit just to get it going. And then the draft terms, I put meet twice this year and then on a monthly basis next year. So I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Do we have to have all that language worked out before we approve the creation? No? Okay.
No, I don't think we have to. I think we can turn that over. And again, board, we can basically make the motion. If we don't like the drafted terms, this has just been presented to us. It's a draft. So we can, again, with whatever is motioned or if there is an action, we can decide that. And if the board wants to say, let's not draft terms, let's let the committee meet with the administration and let's see how it goes. Yeah, because we will have 2 board members present at that. So.
I think it's important to have those community discussions, and that committee will be part of that. So I move that the board approve the creation of the Student-Centered Learning Committee.
All right, Jonathan has moved that we approve the Student-Centered Learning Committee as a board committee. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And Tasha has seconded. Board, any discussion?
I'd just like to be clear as far as what is the difference as far as what we have right now, what is meeting tomorrow versus what can you clarify?
I will start and then I'll let Ginger finish. So what I would say is the way I interpret it is I think the board needs to step up to our community and say, we hear you. And I think that we need to be present at this committee and be involved so that we can hear our community and hear what those needs are and be a part of the solution. And so that's my take on saying, let's make it a board committee. That's my perspective, but Ginger, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say if you approve that committee tonight, we can say that the one tomorrow night is, and if you don't, then we're just going to move forward anyway and have that feedback and continue it that way. I think it's up to you guys as to whether or not that would be that.
Any other comments, clarifications? We're ready for a vote? Okay, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, so Jonathan made the motion and Tasha seconded. You bet. Okay, so all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, excellent. The Student-Centered Learning Committee will now be a board committee. Any clarifications, Ginger?
And I know Tasha's interested. Do we have another board member who'd like to be on that? You don't have to decide now. I'm just saying it's open.
So I don't like putting board members on the spot. So I think according to policy, I guess, it looks like the board chair gets to choose those individuals. I'm not going to do that. I would rather hear from the board. So my thought would be they can reach out to you, Ginger, if they're interested. And I think as long as we can have 2 board members do it, that would be great. So, because we can't do 3, because then it becomes a board meeting. So, okay. So if you are interested, reach out to Ginger. Okay. So board, just for clarification, 2 committees were presented to us. We've taken action on 1. Does the board want to take any action on the Capital Bond Projects Committee?
Paul Canyard has come and presented annually to the board. He has projects in mind. He's been diligent in that advocacy. The capital projects are something that we should be keeping an eye on as we go, so we're not surprised by all of a sudden, hey, guess what? We're overcrowded at the elementary school, and the middle school really needed support also. So I support a capital bond projects committee, and I move that we make this a standing board committee.
I will second that.
Okay, Tasha has moved that we have the Capital Bond Projects Committee be a board committee, correct? And Mike has seconded. Board, any discussion? Okay, then I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right. We have the Capital Bond Projects Committee is now a board committee. Thank you, board.
And will we follow the same process as far as people can let me know if they want to? Because I had a suggestion that we meet once this year, but it's up to the board if they want to do that or not, which could be in May, or we could just start it next year. It would be up to the board on that.
Ginger, I'd like to be on that one.
All right, thank you. Excellent, so noted. Okay. Then we will move on to business. So first on business, we have the enrollment report. Kelly Kronbauer, would you like to give us that report?
Sure. So last month I went ahead and presented. Every month I give you that information. We are down from last month, 1.4 FTE. So very little change from last month to this month across the district. We've had some shifts between buildings or students rotating into different programs, but we still have 3,149 FTE, which is full-time enrolled. And, you know, we're in the middle of the semester, so we're not seeing a lot of changes when it comes to kids enrolling or unenrolling. These numbers do not take into account any new students that are enrolling to be in the building next year. We do have enrollment open for that, but they don't show up yet until they land in our buildings. So yeah, really not a lot of shifts or changes. Are there any specific questions on any specific group you'd like to address? Okay. Thanks.
I don't believe so. So thank you, Kelly. Next up, we have Kim with the budget update.
It's actually a financial update, and so financial status update as of March 31st. And so there's not a lot of changes here, except that we are with our general fund, you will see that we're on track. We're at 7 months out of 12 months for the year, which is about 58% is where our expected budget should be. The general fund is as for revenue, it's at 53%, and expenditures came in at 51% at the end of March. These percentages are below the expected budget, which relates to 7 months out of the 12 months for the year. The unassigned fund balance equates to approximately 10.84% after considering fund balance restrictions and assignments, which is the primary indicator of the district financial conditions. So as I analyzed the budget for all funds, I didn't see any concerns in expenditures or anything that, would be alarming or anything like that. So that's all good. Capital projects came in at 40.13 of revenues and expenditures was 46.04. The fund balance is at $6.07 million. And that consists mostly of state match, tech levy, and assigned fund like interest earnings. Lincoln remodel is right on time and is coming together very nicely. And I'm excited to see a very beautiful building. The debt service revenues are below the expected 50% budgeted revenue, coming in at 50.54, with the expenditures being above the 58% because we pay the principal and interest in December. The majority of our expenditures are in December, and then we pay an interest payment in June. The ASB fund is below the expected 58% budgeted revenue and expenditures. As of March, revenue came in at about 28% and expenditures came in about 27%. But remember, in all my financial updates, they like to budget for any possible fundraisers so that they have capacity within that budget. And private purpose trust funds is not a budgeted fund, but they do have 53,000 at the end of March. Private purpose trust funds reports all our and holds all our scholarships. So scholarship funding and money that we have in there for scholarships. And those come more towards the end of the school year and as we give out scholarships. The transportation vehicle fund is also below the expected 58% budget revenues and expenditures. There's not a lot of movement in this fund right now. We haven't sold buses or surplused anything, so we don't have revenue coming in. And we do not plan on purchasing any buses this year unless something happens to buses so that we need to. Other than that, like I said, there were any concerns as I analyzed the budget or analyzed the expenditures and revenues. So are there any questions?
I just want to thank you. And this, we went into in depth during that work day. So thank you for presenting this again.
I do not see any other questions. So thank you, Kim. All right, that takes us to a policy tonight. So we have policy for safety and management of traffic at schools.
Yes, Board. So we did a first reading on this and then we had our legal counsel look at it. And I am recommending this policy and procedure just to support the traffic management at our schools.
Thank you, Ginger. And I would like to just say as board chair, I've been involved with a lot of the communications with the city. There's been a lot of work that's done for that. And I think this is a great thing for the district to do in partnership with the city to do that. So I acknowledge that I think this is a great step forward with our community. And yes, this is it is a action item. So
I move to accept policy 4501.
I second.
All right, Mike has moved that we approve policy 4501. And Jonathan has seconded. Board, any discussion? Then I will call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? All right. Policy 4501 is approved. Thank you. Next up, we have student reports. Our students are with us tonight. Tasha, is there a teaching and learning report? Okay.
Yes, board, updating on the Washington State Board of Education's work. So they were having listening sessions this month on their profile of a graduate and what they're going to take to the legislature next December. So the two listening sessions for adults were April 12th and April 20th. If you go to their website, they do have notes on them. It's not a transcript, it's a word cloud. So it's interesting on their notes. Hopefully we'll see if they release a recording of it. On May 3rd, it is the student session, and on that one, only students will be allowed to speak and everyone else will be muted just to listen. So just as a reminder, the State Board of Education has been charged by the legislature and is moving forward and trying to gain feedback on potential changes to subject area, credit, and non-credit requirements, and how the components of the high school diploma, the high school and beyond plan, the credit requirements and the graduation pathways, how those could potentially be legislated to change next year to be voted on. I don't know the timeline if that does move forward. What their goal is, I'm just reading from their website, is how to better incorporate the profile skills that are not adequately addressed in the current graduation requirements. So that profile is what Ginger shared in her superintendent update, clarifying the purpose and role of each component of the diploma. They are working with higher ed and employers, and both higher ed and employers have shared that the Washington State diploma does not give enough information, and so there's potential changes to what that diploma looks like. And then shifting the focus from credits to learning standards and promoting more ways for students to demonstrate mastery. And so you can see a lot of their work in the mastery-based learning work group also, which is all on their website. The second thing I wanted to update the board on is through that WASDA leadership group that I was a part of. It is required by the legislature that OSPI has a district allocation of state resources portal. And so the OSPI runs this portal. It's based off of Form S-275. And so it's a district summary sheet. It's an Excel that you can download the raw data, and it shows you, you can compare between districts and between schools, what is funded and what is actual staffing levels. So you can see that first one at the state level, what the legislature is funding. It was informative to me because it's been very confounding walking into our state representative's office and saying, you know, we need to look at the funding mechanism for Ellensburg. Ellensburg is not being served by our current funding mechanism at the state, and they are referring back to this spreadsheet, and they are not seeing the same thing that we are saying, right? They're not seeing our story from the numbers that they are seeing. And until someone had showed me that website, that Excel sheet, and now I can see more what the representatives are saying, right? They've been very forward saying, we do not have interest in fixing McCleary. McCleary is doing exactly what we wanted it to do. And they'll say, you know, we're sorry to hear this, but we've got to figure out a better way to tell our story. And so this portal, you can download the spreadsheet and you can get a clear understanding of what our legislatures are seeing and possible ways that we can strengthen our advocacy.
Thank you, Tasha. Board, any questions for Tasha? Okay. Right. I do not have a board chair report, so that will take us into public comment. And Leslie, I just want to check in with you. Do you have the sign-up sheet? Okay, let's get that. What I'd like to do before I determine how long is it, I think the board really does want to hear from those that have come to give public comment. That's really, the board really cares about what our community has to say to us. And so I think we're going to see how many people have signed up. Also, this is just kind of a reminder, those of you that did show up and plan to public comment, there is a sign-in sheet and there was an attendance sheet. So if you were not sure if you signed up for the public comment sheet, we would definitely like for you to do that. Leslie will have that at the table. Okay, so we have 14 people signed up in person, and I know we have some Zoom. So if everyone gets 3 minutes, that's 42 minutes. And so, and I'm assuming we'll have a few people from Zoom. So I think I'm going to limit the public comment to 1 hour, and hopefully that will get everyone in. So we will start with our in-person those that want to speak public comment first in person. As Leslie gets us started, I am going to go ahead and walk us through how this process will work. And those of you that are in Zoom, this applies to you as well. So individuals wishing to be heard by the board will need to add their name to the list that Leslie has. And they should do that now. If you are in Zoom, there is a document in the Zoom chat box. If you are unable to sign up and put your name in that document, individuals may also be recognized within Zoom by using the icon or emoji to show that you are raising your hand for public comment. Once the chair calls on an individual, they will identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. In order to provide equal opportunity of comments, an individual's microphone will be turned off at the 3-minute time limit. The chair may interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole has the final decision in determining the appropriateness of such rulings. In accordance with the Open Publics Meeting Act 4230, agendas and topics must be set in advance of the meeting. Board members will not respond to public comment during the meeting. And again, if an individual would like a request or like to request a response from the board, please submit this in writing or through an email to board@esd401.org. And with that, Leslie, are we ready to open public comment? All right, I have that it is now 7:16. So that means at 8:16, we will close public comment if we reach that, if we go that far, okay? All right, who do we have up first? All right, Donna.
Good evening, board. Donna Grassel, 200 Cedar Cove Road in Ellensburg. I'm a teacher at Morgan Middle School. Wanted to thank you once again for the work you do as board members on behalf of the students in our district. I'm sure it's a thankless and often overwhelming position, so thank you for your time. I assumed that once I was no longer EEA president, I might get my Wednesday evenings back, but that is sadly not the case since disparaging remarks continue to be made about me in public. So I'm back to defend my honor. Most recently, a board member claimed that in 2019, I had accused the district of hoarding funds by ending each year with an excessive fund balance. I probably didn't use the word hoarding when I explained how this district was repeatedly ending the fiscal year with a much higher than budgeted fund balance, and that the ending fund balance was growing with each passing year. Despite the district making significant yearly withdrawals from the general fund and transferring these funds into the capital projects fund, the ending balance continued to grow. As a percentage of resources used, here are the ending fund balances I was referring to in 2019. In 2015, there was a 13% end fund balance. In 2016, nearly 14%. In 2017, over 16%, and by 2018, nearly 18%. This is the growth in ending fund balance that I was referring to in 2019. I thought I would have a doc cam to show this to you, but I don't, so I'll just hold it up. The orange is what was projected to be the fund balance at the end of each year, but the blue is what actually happened. So you can see the projection was much lower than what happened. And that, I am sad to say, has continued in recent years. And this is all based off of the F-195s and the F-196s that are presented to the state by the district. If that was my family budget, I would be thrilled to have money left over like that at the end of the year, but this isn't a family budget. These are the funds allocated by the state of Washington and the generous voters of this school district to be used to provide rich educational experiences for the children of this valley. Repeatedly ending with a fund balance well beyond the 5 to 8% is not desirable because it simply means that those funds were not fully utilized for the education of our young citizens. I wish I could say that that practice had indeed changed. Furthermore, in Ginger's presentation, she included a plan for some of the Esser 3 funds that have not been utilized. Right now, there are $3.5 million in unaccessed Esser 3 funds, and those are allowed to be allocated to protect educator positions. Despite the public outcry we've all witnessed, this administration has yet to find a way to use less than 1/10 of those funds to prioritize our 2 secondary librarian positions. I hope that by bringing these issues to your attention, you will do additional research, seek out more than one source of information, and look at the available data and create a path forward which fully utilizes the resources for the benefit of all of our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Donna. Marco?
Marco Bicuri, 752 Robinson Canyon Road. Board, Ginger, thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your service to our district. Over the last several weeks, many of us have shared with the board either the words of those afraid of retaliation, or we've mentioned that many district employees are afraid of retaliation. This will not be the first time that you all have heard this. Overall morale in our district has been very low for the last 2 or 3 years. Not just teachers, not just because of COVID, not just because of money. One reason for this is the aforementioned fear of retaliation. This is a shame because whether at a board meeting or in district created and managed committees, this means you will not hear honest perspectives and insights that, though you may not agree with or may not fit the desired outcome, are valuable and would engender a collaborative approach and lead to more supported outcomes and a more committed effort. I generally speak my mind, but as most of you know, including Ginger, my building principal and past board members, and others I've disagreed with over the last 30 years, my commitment to this district, my school, our community, and our American ideals are unquestioned. In the end, I am a team player who can accept no and who will work his butt off for our kids. Even as a union president, I used to dismiss suggestions that the district would hide and or manipulate data and processes. I thought that we just might have trouble understanding the finances, for example, and have to fight for different priorities. I still have hope. Throughout the last couple of weeks, I've dismissed the suggestion that the district would retaliate or was retaliating against employees, especially in the midst of budget cuts. And though it may simply appear that this is happening, the further these spring moves progress, certain people being cut or transferred, certain board policies being reviewed, certain hypothetical cuts being publicly mentioned with potentially affected staff present, etc., I begin to wonder, but I still have hope. I want to be hopeful again. I want to believe that courageous conversations are good and that civic ideals and behaviors I am hired to teach and that our board ends espouse are supported by our district. I'm not afraid, but I'm discouraged and deeply disappointed. We fight because we care, and our goal is not domination or destruction. It's the reinstatement of respect, transparency, and collaboration. We truly all can do this together. Maybe this new committee, along with public comment time, union representation, et cetera, and general goodwill, can be a start. Thanks for your service, and thanks for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Marco. Allison?
Good evening, Allison Carpenter, 870 Game Farm Road. And before my comment, I really want to thank the board for all you do. Your time and dedication are appreciated, especially that legislative work. That's just crucial. It occurs to me that some of you may not know Patrick Dowdy, our middle school librarian. So I wanted to use my comment time to tell you a little bit about him. I first met him in about 2005 when I started teaching for the highly capable program, and I would bring my kids in to seek appropriate reading material for my students. In fact, his youngest daughter was one of my first students, and she could do a mean impression of Rosanna Dana at age 11. One of the things that Pat is great at is he can listen to a kid and they can say, I like this, this, and this, and he can point them to a book or a series that will captivate them. One of my favorite questions was always, what are you reading, Pat? And he would launch into an enthusiastic description of a new young adult book he'd acquired, and often he'd save it for me to read before he put it out on the stacks. He is personally responsible for almost every book in that library now after 22 years. Pat is also a US Navy veteran. He served off the East Coast on submarine tenders and aircraft carriers for 4 years. And then after that, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So the VA paid for him to go back to college, and he went into education and was going to be an English teacher, but he was lured into library science by Jerry Aldridge. He was able to take the middle school librarian's position when she retired at Morgan, and he's now been in that position for over 2 decades. He says he can't imagine moving to classroom teaching. He'll do it, but he says he's been a librarian for many years, not a classroom teacher. He does teach an advisory class and a keyboarding class. So you wouldn't actually be gaining an entire teacher's salary. It'd be more like 3/4 of a teacher's salary by reassigning him. I asked Pat the other day what he'll miss about the library, and he immediately said the kids. He said that he's kind of a confidant, that kids tell him things that they tell no other adult in their lives. I can tell you, I've come and cried on his shoulder a few times or vented, and he's funny, he's irreverent, he's tough, and you just feel better after talking to him. Pat told me not to toot my own horn, but it's the kids that will miss out when they don't have a librarian. And he said, especially at the high school, that he talked about how amazing Kathy Day is and how many kids she's helped there. He says that since this has happened, he'll be in town, whether it's at Safeway or the hardware store or at his church, and students, former students. Oh, well, I just ask you to think about reinstating Pat Dowdy as librarian. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Steve Russell?
One of those signed the wrong form.
No worries. Thank you. Brian?
Good evening. Brian Elliott, 1213 East Seattle Avenue, Ellensburg, Washington. So I'd originally intended to give public comment at the last school board meeting. However, I wasn't able to because I had arrived late and I ended up signing the wrong list. At the time, I know I'm one of those guys. At the time, I was frustrated and I may have reacted abruptly when speaking to Leslie and board member White. I own that. For that, I sincerely apologize to both of you. Although perhaps it is better this way since last time I was just going to wing it. But since this last meeting, I've had time to reflect more thoroughly on this situation, and I was able to come here tonight with some more prepared comments. I believe that the critical nature of certified librarians to the educational development at the K-12 level is clear and has been articulated very well by the educators, students, and community members in this room. In my own personal experience, I served as a library aide for Pat Dowdy when I was in 7th grade, and in a way, this was my first job. And it set the conditions for how I would approach my future roles, including 5 years of active duty military service, particularly in regards to the importance of work ethic and attention to detail. However, what I really want to focus on tonight is the importance of process. Government, particularly at the local level, must be accountable and transparent when communicating with the community. And I think a lot of people in this room are here precisely because they don't necessarily feel like the board adhered to those principles when coming to this decision. A prime example of this would be the recent levy in which the community ultimately supported overwhelmingly, but during which the budget issues which led to these cuts were never discussed. Additionally, I often think there may be a natural reaction to assume that persistent community engagement, as we've seen with this issue, is somehow manufactured or representative of a minority viewpoint. However, I can tell you from the people that I personally know in this room, these concerns are being brought to you by a diverse group with very different experiences and viewpoints who have come together around a common goal of supporting our school librarians and ultimately the best interests of students. So therefore, my ask of the board tonight is that you would truly recommit to these principles, and not just with this issue, but in all matters moving forward. Doing so will go a long way to restoring the trust that is so critically important to the way that our local government should operate. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Melissa?
Melissa Wolford, 2308 North Ellington Street. Surprise, I'm here to talk about secondary librarian positions. After my last comment, I took the time over the last couple of weeks to just listen to the community. And there's a few other things I wanted to share. My job leaves me in a unique position where I get to meet a lot of people moving to Ellensburg and also interact with a lot of people who have lived here a very long time and access our local medical services. So that's every age range. And I just let the conversation come up organically, as it does in small towns, because I didn't want to push anything out there and get a fired response. But I think it's really important for you guys to know that there are already people who are not choosing Ellensburg School District because of this decision, even knowing that we're not the first school district to make this decision. There are a lot of people moving to the community that are looking at things like how high the housing cost is here. And I could go just a little bit further to a different school district and not have the concerns that they're hearing about our school district from just the rumor mill and word of mouth. So I think it's really crucial that we know that, especially when we're looking at student enrollment, to help get this budget back up to where it needs to be to reinstate those positions. And librarians at the secondary level are mental health professionals in so many ways. And I can say that from a personal experience and from a community experience. They were the mental health professionals before those were allotted. So I appreciate your time and everything you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Sally?
I apologize. I'm going to need to leave right after I talk because I left my kids alone at home. I'm a little nervous about that. Okay, I'm Sally Heron, 903 East Spokane. And like I said, I have 3 kids. They're currently at Valley View. I have a tendency to speak pretty bluntly, and I am not known for my diplomacy, but do not confuse my communication style with anger. It's passion. I'm here because I care deeply about our students. And I am saddened and discouraged by what I hear from the board and the administration. I know these are hard jobs. My sister is president of her school board in Montana, and my mom was on school board for many years. But they had something that some of the Ellensburg board members, as well as some of our administrators, do not have, and that is the trust of their community. So I'm asking, why are you really digging your heels in on the issue of librarians? And do you believe that cutting librarians, taking away school choice for enrolled students, dismantling the challenge and discovery program, And creating this culture of mistrust toward the school district will help solve the enrollment problem. And finally, I want you to ask yourself the following question. Why is it that so many members of your community have such a hard time trusting and believing you? Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Mary?
Mary Gordon, 2720 Cove Road. Apologize about the flip-flops, but it was nice when I put them on this morning. So no one is more interested in the financial solvency of the Ellensburg School District than the employees of the Ellensburg School District, and we, the community. Those of us who have lived here a long time are intimately acquainted with what happens when those at the helm of the financial part of it have allowed our district to veer off course, and the devastating impacts that take place system-wide as a result. So we're thankful for the stewardship of our district finances, which has allowed our district, with an imperfect system of educational funding, to create and maintain a healthy fund balance that has seen us through periods of both feast and famine and remains as healthy today as it ever has been, apparently very healthy. That financial health is due in no small part to the cost-saving measures taken thus far by the district, coupled with the oversight of the board, and we thank you for your service to all of us. I've continued to do some research regarding the pay scale for our teachers and the raises that they were awarded. This comes up a lot in the school board meetings, and I've even had to reach out to some people who no longer work in our district. Based on comments during board meetings, this, along with the lower enrollment, seems to be reasons stated for much of the budget woes we're currently facing, and why this district administration felt it was necessary to reassign our secondary librarians. And this is what I've determined. When McCleary was first required to be implemented in the 2018-2019 school year, pots of money were allocated to the district, specifically for administrative raises, teacher raises, and as well as classified raises. The Ellensburg Education Association was intentional about bargaining for the full amount available to them without touching either of the other two pots of monies, with an eye toward fairness and equity. In fact, at one meeting with the Executive Director of Human Resources, at that time, Kim, as well as the Executive Director of Finance in 2018, Brian Aiken, the EEA was advised that it was leaving money on the table and needed to amend numbers to bargain the full amount due to teachers. So my question is this: I'm wondering if the board can explain what it is they want from the teachers. It's my impression that some members of the board feel that the teachers took more than their fair share of McCleary, to the detriment of administrators and our other staff. At the last board meeting, one board member made the comment that the teachers took their raise even during the pandemic, when businesses were shutting down and CWU was furloughing employees. What I'm hearing is that you feel the greed of the teachers and taking more than their fair share of the McCleary money is causing this budget shortfall. Yet the tone of the bargaining meeting doesn't seem to support that. If there is a version that you feel we should hear, please respond in writing.
Thank you, Mary. Jen? What was the last name again? Jen Karkner? Oh, she had to go. Okay, thank you. Okay, Kathy?
Good evening, Kathy Hopkins, 3192 Cove Road. It is my understanding the district administration is citing changes that have already taken place as cost-saving measures for next year. With the loss of 9 certified full-time equivalents over the last 2 years and an average salary of $74,000, the district has saved well over $1 million. In addition, and for the reduction of at least 5 more full-time equivalents, next year through retirement and attrition would bring the savings to over $2 million. The fact that most reductions and retirements have come at the highest end of the pay scale, the dollar figure is likely to be higher. This information has not been part of the presentation to the board. This begs the question, for what reason or reasons would district administration leave these facts and figures out of their presentations to the board? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Gloria.
Gloria Bugney, 361 Cedar Cove Road. As pointed out by the board, reduced student FTE should be appropriately reflected in reduced certificated FTE. With current student FTE down by approximately 60 students, that would correspond to a reduction in certificated FTE by 2 or 3 positions, depending on class size. Yet in that same time period, certificated FTE have already been reduced by 9, with a minimum of 5 more reductions for next year due to attrition and retirement. The question is, why have reductions in certificated FTE outpaced reductions in student FTE by such a large margin? Why have certificated reductions been carried out at 5 times the appropriate level to match reductions in student FTE at best and 7 times the appropriate level at worst? And I also would like to make a personal comment. I am so saddened by everything that our district is going through right now. And I especially would like to thank the board for what you're doing. Even if I don't agree with everything that's taking place, I can't imagine being in your position and spending the hours and hours that it takes to do what you need to do to try to satisfy all of your duties that need to be done for the public. And I also would just like to end it with, throughout this whole thing that's been going on, I feel like transparency and collaboration and trust, and I guess that's about it, I think are what seems to be the underlying thing that we all want, but we don't feel like we're getting. And I hope that you are listening to what people have said earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Debbie?
Hello, my name is Debbie Rowden. My address is 921 Kittitas Highway. And you may remember, but I'm a retired English teacher and I actually went to Ellensburg High School starting in 1967. So my memory goes back a long, long way in Ellensburg school culture. I found it interesting. In 1967, just for some history, there were 650 students at Ellensburg High School when I was a sophomore. And we didn't have freshmen there yet. They still were at Morgan Junior High. At that time, we had 1 principal and 1 vice principal. And the vice principal handled the athletic department in his spare time. My first year of teaching in 1975, we had a 4-year high school. There were 1,050 students at that time, and 1 principal and 1 vice principal handled everything. At the superintendent's office, which was kitty corner from Safeway, Marv Schroeder was the superintendent. Kent Matheson was the assistant superintendent. Joe Teeley was the financial officer, and Colleen Green, the secretary, ran the place. 4 of them handled everything for the district. Today, things are much different. In the 2018-2019 school year, we had, I think, the highest enrollment for the Ellensburg School District. with one superintendent and one assistant superintendent. Though the names and titles have changed, we now have one superintendent and two assistant superintendents. One is called the Executive Director of Student Services and Operations, and the other is called the Director of Teaching and Learning. When enrollment is down, as we've been told, and certificated staffing is down and services are down, essentially everything that needs to be managed is less. Why does the district need an additional top-tier administrator? When the district administration and members of the board recognized that funding was going to become an issue, why did they decide to increase the yearly operating costs in such a significant way? And for what reasons does this kind of decision-making not face greater scrutiny? Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And Barb, you said? Okay, thanks.
Hi, Barb Gall, 3734 River Bottom Road, Ellensburg. Each year since the implementation of McCleary, our district has maintained a beginning and end fund balance over the $7 million mark. Despite teacher administrative and classified raises, despite decreased enrollment, despite the added costs of PPE, cleaning supplies, additional staff and administrators, virtual learning programs, and hotspot provision, despite having accessed only half of the Esser funds available, despite increased costs of SEB, despite the prototypical funding model, despite additional SPED programming costs, despite increased monies to CWU for Running Start, and despite decreased levy collections. With annual operating costs that sit at approximately $50 million annually, the amount that needs to be held in reserve is roughly $2.5 million, which represents 5% of that $50 million amount. That leaves $4.5 million that may be used to get our district through next year without touching the reserve. And that figure doesn't include the $4 million plus in Esser funds that have yet to be collected by the district. Question: for what reasons is the district reluctant to reveal these facts to the board as it continues to implement drastic cuts at every level except the administrative one? Reluctant to reveal them to the community that it serves? Thank you for your time and consideration. As community members, we appreciate the fiscal responsibility exercise thus far that has allowed our district to remain in solid financial shape despite unfortunate circumstances and pandemic-related setbacks. We, the community of taxpayers and constituents that you represent and serve, ask that the board dig deeper and look at the broader picture as it decides how to best serve students and families in both the near and far future. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Mike?
Good evening, board. I'm Mike McCloskey, 1701 North Indiana Drive. I'm also one of the lazy, incompetent, and overpaid teachers that the school board has been referencing at nearly every board meeting for the last 2 years. I'm also the current elephant in the room because I'm one of those teachers who makes over $100,000 a year who've been blasted by the board at recent meetings. Since the school board isn't sharing what I do to earn that money, I thought I would spend tonight sharing with the community what I do to earn my overinflated salary. For reference, this is my 38th year in the Ellensburg School District, and I have more college credits than most doctors or lawyers. My teaching salary is not over $100,000. I make $96,942 for 180 days of work. I also get 4 days of per diem for my work during the summers. I also manage the Morgan Performing Arts Center for $7,000 a year. I do all custodial and maintenance on the facility, paint the stage. I do all community contacts, rentals, tours, and invoices for it. I'm at every event, and that equates to $10.90 an hour. I also, in spite of asking, the district has refused to give me a budget to manage that facility, so all supplies for the impact come out of my pocket. I'm the director of Camp Morgan. I get $750 to do that. I start working on it in February and work on it through the second week of September. I get $8.43 an hour to do that. I get paid $1,500 to manage the Morgan social media and reader board. I start that work at 6 a.m. by checking our Facebook and social media pages. I end it at 11 p.m. when I go to bed, and I monitor it all weekends and all summers. I take great pride in the positive comments I've received for the work on our social media pages. I also get a small stipend occasionally to serve on after-school committees. My largest one this year is $66 a month. That one goes directly toward my Maserati payments. I receive no compensation for the 4 hours I work every Sunday on Schoology and planning for the week. I have written 5 classes from scratch during the summer with no compensation. I manage 20 scholarships for Ellsberg High School seniors. I attend after-school clubs, dances, and activities for no additional compensation. Additionally, I give back to the community. I serve on multiple boards, volunteer at many events, donate generously to local causes, and during our lockdown, I supported every business and restaurant to the very best of my ability. And I consider that I received a salary update, not a raise, because for 8 years in a row, the state paid us less than the previous year. I lost 16 to 24% in salary during those 8 years, and I got a 22% raise to make up for it this year. Everything I do for the benefit of kids in this district, and I'm damn proud of every penny I've earned.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so we'll do one final call for those of you on Zoom. Now is when you need to raise your hand, just to be sure if there's anyone on Zoom that wanted to do a public comment. We're going to give you just a few seconds here to see if a hand pops up. And with that, I do not see a hand. So I think I'm going to close public comment. Thank you. For future, for new business, we have proposed items for future consideration. Board, I'm not seeing anyone jumping up. All right. Okay. So that will take us to the meeting closing. So do we have an executive or closed session, Ginger? Okay. Is there anything for board calendar? No. Is there any clarification and next steps?
Actually, Jason, just to clarify, at the work session, we talked about moving to Thursdays for our agenda settings, and that is taking place starting immediately, right? I think we clarified.
So yes, so yep, I know Leslie's trying to track notes. So just to verify, board setting has been moved from Friday to Thursday, and that starts tomorrow. Perfect. Yes. So yep. So check your Google or check your calendars. Perfect. Thanks for that clarification. Any other clarifications and next steps? Okay. Sorry, board calendar. We just checking again, board calendar, nothing. Okay. Signing of documents, we do not have, but I know you have a stack of diplomas for me. So yay. That's exciting. So with that, board, that leads us to adjournment. I would entertain a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All right. And for the record, Mike moves that we adjourn, and Jonathan has seconded. We are now adjourned. Thank you all.
Just push the button.
Yeah, I think so.